stage, a true Canadian, the original James Tiberius Kirk, the man, the myth, the legend. Please welcome Mr. William Shatner.
Hey. Wow. I wonder why they leave this large space between this, you know, like fanatical people are going to come up and bite you on the ankle.
That's right.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be in Vancouver once again. Yeah, you know, and applause and love and people standing. It's great. It's great. It's not always like that, you know. I mean, I've been booed. Oh, yes, I've been booed. I was booed in Vancouver. Oh, yes, I have been booed in Vancouver. I'm going to tell you that story, and then I'll take questions and see what else we want to talk about. I will never, ever forget being booed in Vancouver. So the story starts in my living room in Los Angeles. I'm always putting together sort of material. Like right now, I've written, I finally finished it, a sort of talk. I've called it Musings on a Starry, Starry Night. And what I did on this talk is I put together a trip that I took in a new car from Philadelphia to Los Angeles. In a new car, and the car was rated at very high speed. And twice during the trip I took it up quite high. In the Allegheny Mountains, when nobody was around, I had it up to 157 miles an hour. And somewhere in Oklahoma, my wife in the car by that time, I said, you know, I had this car up. She said, you didn't put it. And I pressed my foot on the accelerator. And the only reason I took my foot off the accelerator is you know that speed is a felony. And I kept thinking, I'm going to go in the felonious way to jail. So I'm always putting things together. So that day I was putting together a poem by T.E. Lawrence. No. Yes, Lawrence, right? Okay, poem. And he wrote a lot of things. One of them was called Whales Weep Not. And the first line of which that I can remember, because I just thought about telling you this story as I came on stage. The first line I remember was they say the sea is cold, but the sea contains hottest blood of all. Okay, that's the first one. During that time that I was fiddling around with the poem, I was listening to whale sounds. Remember there was an album out, Whale Sound, and the whale sounds were oh. So I edited those sounds, and I started the piece that I was working on. I was just playing around like I'm just playing vocally. So this thing, so I had a soundtrack that went. They say the sea is cold. So it's interesting, right? I mean, it's funny. Your laughter tells me you're not laughing at me, you're thinking it's interesting. Okay, so I put it all together. And then, coincidentally, the guy who was running the Los Angeles Philharmonic comes to me one day and he says, we're opening at the Hollywood Bowl. Now, the Hollywood Bowl seats 18,000 people. You can stand on stage and look up there and people disappear. It's like in the way 18,000 people in an outdoor auditorium. And he says, do you have any material that you would like to do, like for a bit? in the opening of the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, where everybody in the film industry resides and goes to the opening performance of the bowl. I said, well, I've been working on this whale thing. He's all right, that sounds good, that sounds good. Let's do that, and we'll call you, when you get everybody to come in, you'll go, and you'll do it. Now I'm standing on stage. I've never done this in front of an audience before. I'm about to try a new piece of material in front of 18,000 people, some of whom are very big in the industry. And it would be a shame for them to say, Shatner, oh my God, that would not be good. And I'm still going to do it. And I stand up, and I they say the sea is cold, but the sea contains the hottest blood of all. And people are like, and little kids have been running up and down the aisle. Somebody's madness. Well, I finish it and it gets applause, and it was successful. So sometime later, I'm asked to join the Star Wars concert where John Williams. John Williams. So John Williams is conducting his music. See, I rely on people in the audience because my memory is slowly fading. And between now and the time I'm off stage, people think even more. So John Williams is conducting this cross-country tour to all the major centers, music centers in the United States, including a stop in Vancouver. And so I do this to 10, 12 cities in the United States. Now we come to Vancouver. I'm staying in a hotel somewhere. We're in the park. There's an arena in the park, right, where there's music there. Somebody say yes. Yeah. Okay, I wrote it. So now I go to I'm walking towards the auditorium, and I'm hearing a lot of motorcycles. I think that's strange, you know, Star Wars concert, and a lot of and then I see a lot of gangs and black leather and chicks on the back of the motorcycle, and wow, Vancouver is really weird. I go into the theater, and the audience, sold out audience, and I said, wow, that's a strange audience. And they said, yeah, we don't understand it. They're all motorcyclists and gangs and tattoos and knives and guns. Well. So John Williams conducts to a somewhat silent audience, very unusual. Hadn't had that kind of reaction on the whole tour. But hey, it's Canada, it's Vancouver. You have your own right to take John Williams' music the way you want. Now it's my turn to go on. And as I walked on stage, I'm supposed to have nothing happens. I realize the sound system is broken down. I got a microphone that works, but there's no like weird sounds. It gives this poem its character. All I've got is, they say the sea is cold. Well, I start with the say the sea is cold, and suddenly the audience starts booing. Get off the stage! What are you doing? There's a term actors have. It's called flop sweat. Have you ever been embarrassed in a room where you forgot your wife's name or your husband's name, and they said, you forgot your husband, and the perspiration comes out because you don't know what your partner's going to do when they catch you alone. You forgot my name, Father. Whose name were you thinking of? Flop sweat. Little beads of perspiration. Trickles down here. It goes down to your back. A little itchy. Flop sweat. Well, I got over there as quickly as possible. The sound mechanism had broken. But what I learned was the guy who was in charge of the concert had advertised it as a rock concert. Not not a Star Wars concert. is a rock concert. So all the rock and roll guys with their black leathers had come to hear rock and roll, and they were hearing this soaring music. And no wonder they were booing. And I came out, hi everybody, they say the sea is full. So, I still haven't lived it down, the embarrassment. I won't go near that park. I mean, I watered several trees with my gloves. Yeah, Vancouver. I worked here a lot. What was that? There was this little whiskey voice saying, "We love you." And I thought for a moment a biker was... So let's take a question here.
Yeah, we've got a microphone set up here, and people can line up and in an orderly fashion, and just keep it to one question if you can for Mr. Shatner. Go ahead over here.
Hi there. My question is actually a slight obscure blast of your past, but what was your favorite part?
What? I'm having trouble understanding.
Sorry. My question is actually...
Slow.
I get told that all the time. So my question is a slight obscure...
You should take cognizance of it.
It's an obscure blast of your past. What was your favorite part about being the leader of the entire
What
universe?
was my favorite part?
As being the leader of the entire universe when you were the big giant head.
What was my favorite part of the big giant head?
Yeah.
What was the big giant head? No. I'm just acting. So the big giant head. So the big fun about that was John Lithgow. John Lithgow is a marvelous actor, marvelous man. And I had great fun when we worked. He's so funny. He's a farceur. You know, there's a comedy goes in different segments. You know, there's the English comedy, how are you, my dear? And I'm very well, thanks for asking. So you get a few tips. Then there's the tell the joke, make my wife, please, you know, the Henny Youngman stuff. And then the broader it gets, it finally ends up in burlesque, where, you know, and the burlesque comics are flooding. So somewhere before burlesque is farce. It's grounded in reality, and yet it's not real. So people trip and fall, and, you know, if I walked up, say, and fell flat on my face over there and pick myself up, it'd be a laugh. And I'm already doing slapstick. And so there's slapstick, there's vaudeville, and the degrees of how far you go. But how far you go in the force of the comedy defines the comedy. So if you want to still be real and yet be unreal, Third Rock from the Sun is a perfect example of farce. You know. Yeah. Are you applauding? Take a moment. So there's John Lithgow, who's a very serious, wonderful actor, perfect at farce. So now I'm playing the big giant head who's drunk, comes off the airplane, who's his ostensible boss. So we have a good time, and we go crazy, John. But the best moment didn't appear on screen. It was April 1st. We were shooting it, whatever that was, some years ago. It was April 1st. And John says, let's play a April 1st joke on all the brass and the people, because on a television show, there's constant communication between the front office and what's going on the floor. I mean, there are guys writing another show somewhere, you know, on the lot. And they want to know, you know, do they get a take? Would you print? Everybody know the lines? Somebody stumble? What do you mean stumble? You know, that's right. There's a constant monitoring of what's going on, because every second means a dollar. So John says, let's play a joke. Let's have a pretend fight. I don't, not hitting each other, but I'd like to, you can't do that in farce, John. What do you mean I can't do that? And we start to argue. While I'm arguing with him and we're both blowing it up, we're almost becoming farcical in the argument. While I'm doing that, I'm thinking, God, I hope nobody Twitters this. Because, you know, two leading men, because some years earlier on Broadway, this guy who was an Olympic swimmer from Australia was in a play with me on Broadway. My first Broadway. And he had asked earlier to me, because my name for the first time is above the title, that's supposed to be meaningful. He said, will you vouch for me, get some better billing than I? So I did whatever. So I thought he owed me. Freeze the play. Because if you start a long run, and the first day you're on stage and you do the play, and you're saying, let's say this is my shoulder, and I say, take my wife, please. And he said, and the guy opposite me goes, yes, sir, that's a really funny line. If you don't do that exactly, in a week, it's that. In a month or a year, if you're long run, if you haven't frozen exactly what you're doing, this becomes something else because it just gradually changes. It just does. You feel differently one day than another day. And suddenly, when you feel bad, you feel you've got a cold, then that suddenly becomes what you do the next day. And things change and warp. And what you had precise and perfect on opening night on Broadway, in 6 months or a year, can change. So the director comes back frequently and redirects the play to what it was. So you freeze the play. This Olympic swimmer with these big arms, I discovered after opening that if he didn't get a laugh on the next line, he'd hit me hard. So I took it for about a month, but he'd hit me hard all the time. And finally the scene became like, it's a scene where he hits me. And I think, okay, this is where he hit me. And then I continue. Why am I doing that? I went to him and I said, hey, Paul, you know, you didn't hit me on opening night. He said, I did. I said, no, it becomes a scene about you and me. He said, I'm doing it. So I went to the stage manager who manages the show. I said, boss, you know, I hate to be crying. I used to box and, you know, I was a high school athlete. But he's hitting me. So the stage manager was afraid of him too, so he didn't do it. And I finally went to the Actors Equity, to the union. And this guy, he listened to nothing. So a month into it, I said to him, listen, Paul, you hit me again. I swear, I'm going to hit you back. Broadway show, 2,000 people again. People have paid, you know, $50, $100 for a scene. And he took that as a challenge. He was an Olympic swimmer. Everything was a challenge. So he hits me. I hit back! And at that point, the curtain came down. And he charged me. And he swung, and I ducked, and he hit an old prop guy who was trying to put him up. Knocked him down. And the headlines the next day were 2 Broadway actors are playing. So I'm thinking, geez, I hope this isn't a repeat. Like, John and I are getting into it. What do you mean? You're a big dumb head. I'm not a big, you're the dumb. And we're mock yelling at each other. And everybody shrank. And it was only later because Lithgow had a cake ready for April 1st. We walked out screaming at each other, and then somebody handed us the cake. And by that time, all the management from up there who had gotten word had gone on to the second one. Lithgow and Shatner. We said to the kids, April Fool! And nobody laughed. So that's the moment in Thank you so much. I'm so very glad to be back in Vancouver.
I was just wondering, for next year's 50th anniversary of Star Trek, what would you like to see happen?
Oh, what an interesting question. So here's the dilemma. 50 years, 19, whatever that was, 66. So it's 50 years. 50 years, I can't believe it. I've got a grandchild, for God's sake, man. I don't know when that happened. I was wide-eyed, bushy-tailed 50 years ago, so I blinked my eyes, and all of a sudden, I've got a grandchild. And more than one, actually. I might name each other. So I started thinking about a 50th anniversary show. And I thought, what kind of show? We got the actors. What do you do for a 50? It's never happened. It showed this before. In the entertainment industry, there's never been anything like Star Trek. 50 years later, I'm talking to you. I'm saying Star Trek is coming out of my mouth the way it came out 50 years ago. And you're all saying Star Trek. And kids come up. I'm watching Star Trek. You're watching Star Trek. So I have been going to a number. I went to the Sci-Fi Channel, who hasn't given me their final answer. But I broached the idea that the 50th anniversary show would be about the ideas that Star Trek dramatized. Race relations, where we had that kiss, but I was thinking of the one where Frank Gorshin was half black and half white on his right hand side, and he hated this guy who was half black and half white, but black on his right hand side. It was the opposite. And the stupidity of hating somebody because of their color. So it was like a great science fiction story. Those stories abound in Star Trek. And I thought, if you could take, say, race relationships, and do an 8-minute capsule of race relationships in this country, the effect that those shows had on the public, people who were affected by seeing those shows in terms of their opinion about race. So every idea, not every, but say 8, 10 ideas that computer warfare, where the country never knew the slaughter and the blood and the guts of war, but it was a war by computers, and then that's the way they fought their wars. But they never knew of the horror of war. So isn't that the way we're removed? And so each one of those ideas for an hour-and-a-half show, dramatizing and setting each of those ideas in its context, I thought would make a great 50th, and of course the actors and all that, but the thrust of it would be the ideas. I thought that would be a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, would you write that?
Yeah.
Not all of you said that.
We all thought it. Hello, Mr. Shatner. I was actually wondering, do you have any favorite moments as Denny Crane?
Keep wondering that what?
I was wondering if you have any favorite moments as Denny Crane.
Favorite moments of Denny Crane. Favorite moments of Denny Crane. James Spader's a real guy. 5 years of working with a guy, you either learn to hate each other or love each other. So we loved each other. I haven't seen him in quite a while, but he's this wonderful actor and a wonderful guy. But he has some peccadillos. And I hate this about myself, because I like to play jokes. So I was thinking, what kind of a joke can I really play on James Spader? That occupied my attention for many minutes. I didn't sleep well for weeks as I thought, what can I do to James that would make him upset? So one day, I was standing by the craft service table where they have food and stuff like that. And I saw him come in the door of the studio. We were called to go on set. I was going by to get a cup of coffee or something. And he entered the door, and he took one look, and then he went that way around, and he did a huge detour to avoid going beside the craft service table. So later on, I said, what did you do? He said, well, you know, I've got this thing. I've got this cleanliness thing. And when I get near the table where everybody's I don't want to do it. So I avoid it. I see, clearly, yeah, I just about wash my hands a lot. And I take alcohol before I open the studio door. I take alcohol on the handle so I can pull it over. You know, like you might do in a restroom. He does it on the handles. You're fastidious. You know, I just don't like dirt and bugs. I don't like uncleanness. I don't like things that are unclean. So one day we were doing the drinking thing on the balcony. And we're rolling cameras, like we sometimes show 3 cameras at once. So we take close up him, a wide shot of him. I had a little Vaseline on my hands. And I pick up a glass of whiskey. And I smeared the Vaseline on the glass. Poured a little alcohol. I handed him the glass. And he said, "Founding horror." It was an animal in it. You can see it on the face. They go, what? Right towards the craft service table. So I played my little joke on it. Doesn't sound memorable to you, but to me, there were so many funny moments of that character. And I had an interesting experience in that way, in that I knew that David E. Kelley, this genius writer, was, in movies, when you do a day's work, it's all filmed, and then the next day, everybody who needs to sees that film. So it's called dailies, the one term for it. So everybody goes to dailies, except the actors who are either not invited or I don't go because I don't want to see what's happening. But everybody goes to see dailies, and I knew that David Kelley was seeing dailies and seeing my work on it, and he would write to the character. And whatever I was doing, he would write something for whatever I was doing. And then I would get the script later, and I'd see what he was doing, so I would amplify that. We were working with each other, writer, actor. It happens, but it doesn't happen frequently. And so one day I saw him having me say my name many times. And in that moment, I thought I saw what the character would do. In that, you know how a lizard sticks its tongue out? You know what it's doing? It's tasting the air, the chemicals in the air. It's assessing the environment. That's what he's doing with his tongue. And I got the impression that that's what Denny Crane would do with his name. Denny Crane. Benny Graham. You know, there would be a reaction in some way, which and that became a thing that we would do. So anybody heard of Benny Graham? So it became so creative, so warm. It was wonderful. Boston. Thank you.
All right, we're pressed for time, guys. We just have time for one more question.
If you were to choose a show, what would be your favorite?
Wait, slowly. If I was what?
If you were to choose a show, what would be your favorite? And if
Wait, if I were shooting in film, I'm so sorry.
no, the ones that were already filmed. Out of the films you have done,
All the films I've done.
which would be your favorite, and what is the funniest part?
What was the funniest part of my favorite film
That you have done.
that I have done? Well, you know, it's hard to, because over a long period of time I don't remember it. But I do know that one of the great films that has ever been made was Star Trek V. And and it just so happens that I directed it. And we ran out of money for the ending. So I didn't have an ending. I thought that was really funny. Thank you, everybody.